Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. Hope everyone is doing well out there tonight and had yourselves a fantastic Friday and a great ending to your week. And I certainly hope everyone is having a great start to their weekend. Speaking of your weekend, we're going to give you some updated information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your weekend, really just focusing in on the eastern U.S. And we're going to talk about this gigantic storm you see on your screen right now. It's producing severe weather, a flooding threat, and then it will produce a winter storm across areas of the Northeast. We're going to give you updated information on all this. Take advantage of those timestamps. You guys know my videos are very long. Those timestamps are there to help you folks. Take about 10 minutes after the video before finalizing uploading the video to put those in a video for you guys to utilize. So definitely utilize. I understand not everybody has 35, 40 minutes of their day, sometimes twice a day, to watch my video, about the weather. But for the folks who do, I really appreciate it. It means the absolute world. So thank you for the people who do. But I get it, guys. I do. I don't expect the duration analytics on my videos to be 30 minutes out of 35, and they certainly aren't. It's about 7 to 9 minutes, and I get it. But regardless, we're going to keep this style going, feed you guys a ton of information. So we're going to talk about what's going to happen between now to the overnight hours and kind of the remaining severe weather threat between now and then. We'll give you a segment for Saturday, your severe weather threat for tomorrow across Georgia and the Carolinas and Florida. We'll talk about the severe weather risk, tornado threat, and the flooding risk. And then we'll have a separate, pretty large segment for the Northeast as far as how much snow some of you folks can get. And we're going to show you some awesome graphics. Took the time to pull up these graphics from the National Weather Service. It's going to show town names, town cities, and give you guys, as of right now, Friday night, what they're forecasting snow-wise for these interior Northeast locations. So we'll pump out some really detailed information for you folks. I want to quickly say I might not have a video at all tomorrow. We're going to have some active weather here in my home state of South Carolina, and I might be leaving out very early. I'm talking about like before 6 or 5 o'clock in the morning to really just track this weather and storm chase, basically. So for, my regulars that really depend on my morning forecast videos, I might have to leave you hanging tomorrow, but it's going to be an active day here in my state potentially. And I just want to be out there pumping out the updates, storm chasing, and just enjoying the elements. So just, forewarning, and I'll put something in the community post that, reminds everybody who do not watch this video. But if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling out here. A lot of rain falling out there across Alabama, starting to move into Georgia. This rain will begin to overspread into South Carolina here in the coming couple hours. We do have some ongoing flash flood warnings. Folks, the severe weather threat for the Deep South to date has not really materialized. There was always that high ceiling, low floor potential, and I was always thinking maybe it was more so a low floor. It's just basically because a lot of this convection is just kind of congealed up. But the severe weather threat is still ongoing, so I don't want to just totally discount it altogether. We do have some energy in Oklahoma that we're not really going to speak on, but there could be a little wintry mix here in portions of Oklahoma as cold air is trying to catch up with this moisture. Just a steady, moderate to heavy rain across the Great Lakes region. Lower Michigan, everybody is raining. Could crash to some snow in some of these areas right into here into the overnight hours. But you see this big area of moisture heading right towards the Northeast again. I think everybody will pretty much start out as rain just about before eventually switching to some heavy wet snow. But this is the system right now. Let's talk about watches, warnings, and advisories. Flood watches continue. They've been extended into the low country portions and southern Midlands of South Carolina, upstate of South Carolina, a few counties in the southwest, foothills and mountains of North Carolina. And then we have the flood watches that are continuing for areas of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and a good chunk of Georgia. But if you look right here, and we will zoom in on this once we get to the Northeast panel, talking about the winter storm. We do now, remember I was questioning, I was like, why don't we have winter storm watches up for the Northeast? Now we do. Even one county in Ohio, a couple counties, few counties in Pennsylvania. The few counties kind of south of Buffalo have winter storm watches. And pretty much all the Tuck Hill Plateau, the Adirondacks, winter storm watches, Green and White Mountains, into some of the higher mountain ranges of Maine, and just in general, just western Maine have winter storm watches. But even areas outside these winter storm watches areas are expecting snow. We do have I think, what are these? These are, coastal flood watches up for areas of the Northeast too. So we'll zoom in on that here in a second. But this is for right now. Let me make sure there's no updated information. Yeah, so this is the latest information for the Storm Prediction Center between now and Saturday morning. This isn't for our Saturday during the day. That's a totally different segment we'll talk about. So we continue to have this slight risk, and this is driven off that 5% risk of a tornado, chance of damaging winds, but we would continue to have a threat of severe weather. I think here in the next couple hours, this will get kind of cut off in this area, and you'll kind of maintain the slight risk probably in southern Alabama. But, we kind of took a look at what the radar looked like in the area just a second ago. But, as we continue to move over the next couple hours, the heaviest rain will really be in Alabama, start to move into Georgia, and this will continue. And we still got to watch these little feeder bands right into here. Ingredients still in place down here. We still got to watch these storms, around Hattiesburg, which, just west of Hattiesburg a couple hours ago, we did have a tornado warning that did show some tight rotation. Not sure if it ever produced a tornado. I think we'll know probably eventually if we had any damage, but continue to get this feed of kind of showers and maybe some storms throughout southeast Louisiana. I mean, look at Alabama here. And we'll talk more on Georgia here in a second. And we take it after midnight. We're getting into the wee hours of the morning. Some of these storms will be quite intense south of Montgomery, around Dothan, maybe Auburn, Alabama. Crashing into Columbus, Georgia. And they'll finally, as we're getting into daybreak, 6, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, these storms will continue to still be working through, the western panhandle of Florida, southeast Alabama. But I think as we get to about midday tomorrow, we're about done with this in this area. And we'll speak on the panhandle in Georgia, South Carolina once we get to the Saturday segment. But we still need to watch out for these storms. Updraft Felicity swap between now and tomorrow morning still indicates some rotation around that warm front that we spoke heavily on in this morning's video. And we'll speak heavily on it in this video too once we get to Saturday. But continue to watch out just for some spinners out here. If your county gets under a tornado warning, obviously we're losing daytime now. The sun's beginning to set in all these areas. Please take this serious, because one, it'll probably be raining pretty hard, and two, it's going to be nighttime. You're not really going to see this, but we'll continue to have that moderate risk of flooding in this area. Well, rain is already falling pretty heavily right now. This will continue. And this red, guys, that is a 40% chance of flash flooding. The yellow, 15% risk or more of flash flooding. And between now and Saturday morning, some of this has already fell and falling right now, but it really maximizes this area kind of in eastern Alabama, western Georgia, of 4 to 5 inches of rain. So several more inches of rain is possible, but at least a couple to a few more inches of rain is possible, and likely in the southern half of Alabama and Georgia over the next 24 hours. And this in Georgia isn't accounting for what's going to fall after tomorrow morning. So please take that serious. Let's break down Saturday's threat. So as of right now, a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 as of around 7 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, is when I'm talking right now, making this video. Slight risk. I don't see any reason to upgrade this to an enhanced risk yet. But if they do, it's probably going to be because of a 10% risk of a tornado. And it would probably be, let's see if this is going to work for us. It is. I would reckon it would be for this area right into here. That's what I would say. If they're going to make any kind of upgrade, I would say it's right here. Now, this could extend a little bit further down here too. I could see that. But this area right in here, I think has the highest chance to see a tornado. And we'll talk more on that here in a second. But level 2 out of 5 risk, a slight risk. What is this driven off of? Well, right now, you got a 5% risk of a tornado for this brown area. This includes areas like pretty much Fayetteville, Columbia, Florence, Orangeburg, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Savannah, Hilton Head, Edisto Island, Macon, Savannah, I've already said that, Jacksonville, and portions of northern Florida. So we got to watch out for this. This is where you'll have your best overlapping ingredients for severe weather. Hail threat with this. The ingredients in the atmosphere really won't support hail tomorrow, but there is that chance of hail, especially with any discrete supercells that get going. The wind threat, folks, in this yellow, there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. So we do have a wind threat. I don't see this increasing, but that's what we have right now. But let's start, I know we're kind of cutting North Carolina off, but I get this enough into the slight risk in North Carolina. Folks, I really think that it'll be a sharp cutoff somewhere up here in the PD of South Carolina. I'm just not buying much of a severe weather threat in North Carolina unless you live in southeast North Carolina. But let's start this off around midnight tonight. Actually, it's around 1 a.m. Heavy rain and storms falling in the Macon area points south. You get down here a little bit further south, could have some more in the way of severe weather. So it's pretty much rain taking over the entire state of South Carolina. A lot of rain in Georgia. Rain's moving up into North Carolina. And then we take it all the way to, this is about 5 o'clock in the morning, right? We get this big feeder kind of band of thunderstorms kind of working its way through southeast Alabama, the heart of Georgia, south of Atlanta. And, we've had some changes today with the rainfall forecast in South Carolina. Even in Georgia, it's kind of went down. It's looking like the heaviest rain might stay kind of south of Columbia. We'll see. But, we're already going to be waking up. For example, this is 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, already waking up to some nasty storms around Orangeburg, potentially up to Florence. Very heavy rain, but there's likely going to be some stable air up here. I don't even really think the unstable air is really built into this area yet. But you see this sector right here kind of developing as we're waking up tomorrow morning. This is an area of an unbothered air mass, meaning it has a chance to destabilize. Okay, so you kind of keep this going. And still this feeder of storms around mid-morning at this point. And each hour we go by later into the morning to the afternoon hours, the more the atmosphere starts to really get going. And you stop it right here. I'm going to draw again. You see these storms ongoing right here? They might not ever stop really getting going. But the atmosphere right in here is really starting to get juiced up. It is. And it's going to try to get juiced up back up here too, kind of behind this initial area of storms. But, you keep this going here. Here's these storms early tomorrow morning, kind of riding off. And then we kind of have to watch another area of storms that could potentially form back here. But I know this doesn't look terrible, that bad when you just kind of look at it. It's around 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. But I'm telling you, even, in this line of storms or embedded kind of storms or semi-discrete supercells, there's going to be some embedded rotation in this line of storms. And some of these could, detach a little bit, take better advantage of the atmosphere out there. So I really think that you got to watch out. Anybody that these storms kind of form on top of and then head into. So they kind of develop right into there. And then we kind of got to watch some of these storms that kind of form behind it. But I think by the time we get into tomorrow evening, honestly, the severe weather threat is just about done. Now you look at the NAM, okay? We'll kind of go on and take it all the way out to tomorrow about 7 a.m., 6 a.m. Central Time. And the same kind of deal, right? You got a lot of storm activity here in central Georgia moving out of southeast Alabama. It looks like you really clear out on the NAM ahead of this area of storms, right? Raining up in Columbia, maybe some storms in Augusta around late morning. And then it almost like breaks these storms off a little bit. And we get to about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now this looks more worrisome. And you're probably asking, well, why? It's because it looks like some of these storms are detached from one another. That means, you kind of call them discrete or semi-discrete storms. And if you read the discussion, let's go on and go back here. We got all the time in the world. We can talk about this. It does speak on, man, where'd it go? Let's see. It speaks on it somewhere. Maybe that was an old discussion. But there we go. Well, I guess it's not in here no more. It was at the bottom of the discussion. I apologize, guys, for getting off track there. But, a previous discussion did talk about the fact that we could have the highest confidence of discrete supercells is most likely going to be in portions of Georgia and South Carolina. So I would have to go back to, I think, an old discussion unless I'm looking at it wrong. But anyways, let's stay focused here, even though we just definitely got off focus. But you see these storms right in here. These could be dangerous. They could be. And, Trey from Convective Chronicle, I think it's Convective Chronicles, made a great video. And he didn't really speak on this very long, but he didn't really need to. But, he talked about him liking the Georgia and South Carolina area for some of these supercells to get going. But yeah, it definitely looks different than the HRRR model, right? The HRRR model, it looks a little bit more broken up, which would not be good in this scenario. Both models does show kind of a skinny line of storms, almost associated with the cold front that kind of sweeps through one last gasp, and then this moves on out. We do know the ingredients will be there, guys. You look at your surface moisture, your dew points here, and, we get into Saturday morning, waking up, and, dew points are in the upper 50s, low 60s in Columbia, but you'll notice the air mass gets a lot more thick. It feels a lot more humid by the time we get into midday. And then there's that moist sector really building in, moist to warm sector. Very humid in Florida for this time of the year. Very humid in South Georgia for this time of the year. Dew points in the upper 60s, low 70s. And look at this very moisture, this, let me talk, right? This pool of very moist air into South Carolina where you have dews widespread in the upper 60s or around 70. So that will allow for some of this cape to really build into this area. And then you'll notice cold front moves in and dries out the atmosphere. And hopefully we can begin to dry out after this. So you look in response to those higher dew points. What about these cape levels? This is mixed layer cape. How much cape in the atmosphere is going to be available? That storm fuel. Well, the HRRR model says, almost 2,000 joules per kilogram here in southern Georgia. But what are your kinematics going to be in this portion of the area? Are you going to have some storm development? But watch how it begins to spike in South Carolina as we get into tomorrow afternoon. And you see these areas right in here where cape values are getting above 1,000 joules per kilogram, which in this setup is plenty of cape, plenty of storm energy in the atmosphere. It looks very kind of broken up and sporadic. That's because you got storms forming and moving over this kind of pool or areas of storm fuel, kind of eating up the storm fuel, if you will. But I mean, you put a sounding right over kind of the highest area of cape, and you click on it here. And we'll talk about the soundings here. You got to your eyes immediately go down to here. It says TOR for tornado. So that's the possible hazard. Looping hodograph up here. You got a little bit of veering with height. Dew points around 70, air surface temperatures in the low 70s. So you definitely got the energy in the atmosphere to get a spin up. It's really here. So we kind of keep this going and what this looks like tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be one of those days where you really look at real-time observations. I mean, you always do that day of, right? But tomorrow will be a big day for that. I really do think. And, if we take a look, let's take a look at the NAM and talk about the storm fuel, the cape levels, and see what it looks like. Starting off tomorrow morning, this spikes, and you see, it really likes this area of southeast Georgia into the low country of South Carolina. I think this is an area to watch right into here. But you notice how it goes from 1,000 joules per kilogram in like Lexington and Richland County to like nothing up here around Newberry and Fairfield. Yeah, so there's going to be a kind of a CAD boundary, a warm front boundary, if you will. It literally is a warm front. And you can actually kind of see it into here. It's pretty wild. If you kind of draw kind of a displacement, there's a little bit of fuel in the atmosphere into here, but that is your cold air damming, stabilizing this atmosphere. And here's kind of your warm front kind of building into this region, allowing for the ingredients to build in for severe weather. But on the NAM, it's kind of the same deal, a little bit higher. The NAM actually has a potential dangerous situation tornado hazard right here with a big looping hodograph. And definitely some veering with height in the low levels of the atmosphere. So the NAM is a little bit more of a worrisome severe weather threat right here. An area that's been hit by tornadoes a good bit over the last couple of years. Trust me, down here in Allendale, I got the tornado on April 5th. In 2022, that was a pretty big tornado. But you look at the updraft velocity swath with this setup, you notice we're getting into tomorrow morning. We could have some rotating thunderstorms early in the morning, but I really don't think the atmosphere is really prime yet tomorrow morning for severe weather. I think it quickly becomes prime as we get around late morning, early afternoon. And there it is. There's the potential for these spinning storms right into here. But there's a dramatic cutoff between this area of like green and blue, which is highlighting where this particular one of the HRRR model saying we're going to get some rotation with some of these storms. So please take this severe weather threat tomorrow serious. We kind of look at the significant tornado parameter with this setup. And let's go back to this. Let's go. In fact, let's go to the latest short range model run. And, we get all the way out to about 3 o'clock in the morning. If you notice, we'll take it all the way, folks, this is all the way to about 11 a.m. Eastern time. And the significant tornado parameter is already beginning to get a little higher. And if you don't know what the significant tornado parameter is, the higher the numbers you see on here, the better ingredients for tornadoes. Don't think just because you see like a 4, 5, or 6, or 7 that there's a 7 out of 10 chance to see a tornado or something. That's not how this works. Just think of it, the higher the number, the better the ingredients for a tornado on this particular run. So you can see the boundary right into here, right? Conditions favorable for some tornado development into here. But you kind of go back and look at this, and man, it already looks, see how different that looks? On the latest run, right around 11 a.m., it already has conditions that are beginning to become more favorable for tornadoes all the way up into the PD. But then if you look at the 18Z, it hasn't quite built in this region, but it looks a little bit more intense, higher numbers. But anyways, you see what I mean here. Significant tornado parameter begins to get higher into the eastern South Carolina, southeast Georgia as we start to get to the afternoon hours. And then when the cold front moves in, we're done. Okay. There will be a flooding risk for tomorrow also. A slight risk of flash flooding here means there's at least a 15% chance of flash flood guidance being met in the yellow area. And we look at how much rain could fall. I mean, they've actually dropped some of the rainfall totals, which is good because, man, we don't need no more rain here in South Carolina. Sheesh, we have gotten so much rain. I know there's probably going to be a point sometime in the summer where I'm begging for rain, but I'll take a break from it for about a week and a half. But, Georgia's going to get a lot of rain overnight, flash flooding risk, 3.5, 4 inches of rain. And we're probably going to get 2 to 3 inches of rain, probably all the way into like Orangeburg, Aiken, Allendale, Barnwell. You guys are going to get probably 2 to 3 inches of rain. But I do think there'll be a sharp cutoff between maybe only an inch of rain and maybe 3 inches of rain, depending on where you are. But this is how much rain we're expecting in this region. So let's talk about this winter storm moving in for the Northeast. Be a pretty big update for you folks. But there's those closer look at those watches and flood watches, winter storm watches, coastal flood watches into this region. And then we even do have some high wind watches. It's going to be pretty windy in this area, guys. It really is. I mean, some of these areas might get blizzard conditions depending on how much snow is falling and for how long. Let's take a look at the latest long-range HRRR model. And here's all this precipitation moving in, and let's take it all the way to about 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Look, this is elevation-driven. Even the Catskills of New York, maybe even the Poconos, could start off with some heavy, wet snow. Adirondacks for sure. All rain back in Buffalo, most of Pennsylvania. Could potentially eventually get some snow down to West Virginia as cold air filters down with associated energy. But we take it all the way to about 9 p.m. tomorrow evening. I mean, it is snowing heavily maybe in the Catskills. The Tug Hill Plateau, the Adirondacks, snow's moving into the higher elevations of Vermont and New Hampshire. But in this valley region right in here, between these mountains, I mean, I don't think you'll be cold enough for snow. I think you'll stay a cold rain in this type of setup. But that doesn't mean you couldn't switch to some snow, especially as cold air filters in behind. But you go all the way out to about Sunday morning, folks. The meat of this system moves in and out pretty fast. Takes about a day, but it moves in, moves out. And I don't want to ignore my folks in southern New England. Okay, you could start off as a little bit of wintry weather here in the Berkshires, Worcester Hills. Heavy wind-driven rain in southern New England overnight tomorrow night. Look at all this heavy snow into Maine, really the northern 2/3 of Maine. And what's interesting to me is this backside energy that starts to show up on the HRRR model for your Sunday. Cold, blustery, snowy day across western PA, western New York State, lake-enhanced moisture, maybe a lake-to-lake connection, March. Like mid-March, it's pretty wild. Lake effect snow, here we are. Snow begins to fall pretty heavily in West Virginia. Snow showers, snow squalls are possible all the way down into eastern sections of Ohio. So we kind of look at an extension of this, and here's kind of all that backside energy as we're getting into Sunday evening. Still additional snowfall will continue to fall Sunday across the Northeast. Northwest flow down to West Virginia, higher elevations in Maryland. And we're getting into Monday morning, and we continue just to have kind of snow flying around. Let me get this updated Euro here. And, I mean, it really takes all the way until about Tuesday morning before all this energy just finally heads on out. So a broad look at how much snow we could expect in this area. I know this doesn't help because it's kind of hard to see on your screen. But in general, these areas right in here are favored for snow. A couple inches of wet snow, even in these higher hills of, what is that? I think it's the Allegheny Mountains or something like that. Maybe I'm thinking of another range. I think that's what it's called. But, snow all the way into the higher elevations of West Virginia. But these interior sections of the Northeast, Tug Hill Plateau, the Adirondacks, Green and White Mountains, maybe even a little snow in the Berkshires, a little snow in the Catskills and those higher elevated regions. Going to be a pretty juicy winter storm. I mean, this snow is going to be heavy, wet, and very difficult to shovel, that's for sure. So let's take a look at these individual graphics that I imagine help a lot of people out. Guys are calling for 2 to 3 inches of snow in Cleveland between now and 8 a.m. Monday. I mean, some second week of March snow, accumulating snow in Cleveland, not unheard of, but, they're going for 2 to 3 inches of snow in Akron. You head on up the road, you go to Chardon, 6 to 8 inches of snow forecast. Andover, 4 to 6 inches of snow. I've said this before, but I'm always shocked, and I didn't realize that there's some higher hills and low top mountains in this region. I didn't even know there was. I think there's some skiing areas also in this region too. So I didn't know that at first. That's pretty wild. 4 to 6 inches of snow in the Erie. They're calling for 8 to 10 inches of snow in Edenboro. Corey, 8 to 10 inches of snow. Pretty wild stuff, folks. I mean, this isn't unheard of, but this is some heavy March snow. Head on up the road. Pittsburgh going for, maybe half an inch. Not much. And the panhandle of West Virginia here, not much at all. But Davis down here in northern West Virginia, maybe 3.5 inches of snow, half an inch in Morgantown. A little bit up the road in the Clarion, 2 inches. Old City, 3 inches. So we'll see what we can happen here. That makes a lot of sense. Guys, I don't speak that good. But State College, not expecting much. You go out to Warren, though. Bradford, 3 to 4 inches of snow is possible with this event. Ridgeway, 2 to 3 inches of snow. Clearfield, 1 to 2 inches of snow. So a little bit of snow in here, very wet snow. And then this is when we start to get some of these higher totals. Buffalo going for 2 to 3 inches as of now. Get just east and south of town, starts to run the risk of a half a foot of snow. Springville, 6 to 8 inches of snow. Rochester, 3 to 4. Fulton, 6 to 8. Weedsport, 6 to 8. Getting to the Tug Hill Plateau, somebody could get 12 to 18 inches of snow over here. Watertown, 8 to 12. So a good bit of snow in this area right in here, the Tug Hill Plateau. And then we had a little south, Syracuse, maybe 4 to 6 inches of snow. Cortland, 6 to 8. Auburn, 6 to 8. Binghamton, maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow. So there's a good graphic out of that region. Then we head into the Albany region. The valley areas, not going to hardly get much at all. You get up into the Berkshires, someone could get 6 to 8 inches of snow. Well, the Berkshires that extend into, I'm not sure if y'all still call it the Berkshires in southern Vermont, or if that's only a Massachusetts thing. You guys will have to let me know for that. But 6 to 8 inches of snow in Blue Mountain Lake, that's a pretty cool name. Old Forge, 4 to 6 inches. And North Creek, 6 inches of snow. So once you get kind of in the southern areas of the Adirondacks, obviously higher snowfall totals. And then you get into the Adirondacks, northern New York State. Certainly an appreciable snow event up here. You don't have to worry quite as much about elevation up here, but between now and 8 p.m., which we could still have more snow after this, several inches of snow is expected. But you get into the kind of the sunken areas, the valley regions right in here. Burlington, only about an inch. But you get into some of these higher mountain ranges of Vermont, someone could get 18 to 24 inches of snow. It's very possible. And tucked into some of these valley towns, this depends on your elevation. It really does. It's all elevation driven. If you're sitting at 1,000 feet, maybe not that much. You're sitting at 2,500 feet, maybe a lot. So when you kind of go up and down in some of these areas, can make a huge difference in snowfall totals. And then we head on up here to New Hampshire and areas of Maine. Big storm. For the higher elevations of New Hampshire up into Maine, what is that? Rangeley, 12 to 18 inches of snow. Rumford, 8 to 12 inches of snow. Augusta, 2 to 3. Auburn, 3 to 4. I guess there's an Auburn in every single state just about. But you head on down here to the coastal regions of New Hampshire, kind of the coastal and southern regions of Maine. Not much expected from this. I think there'll be a sharp cutoff right into here. Then we kind of round this off by looking at the Caribou National Weather Service out of this area, and not much in the down east areas. Mount Katahdin, 12 to 18 inches of snow, which I imagine is a favorable spot for snow in Maine. Clayton Lake, 4 to 6 inches. More just a heavy wet snow up here, so definitely be prepared for this. Caribou going for 2 to 3 inches of snow. So winds, this is predicted wind gusts between now and Monday evening. I mean, just across the entire Northeast, folks. Scattered 35 to as much as 50 mile per hour wind gusts. I'm sure Mount Washington is probably going to break 100 mile per hour wind gusts like they always do. Some of the craziest weather in the world. Delmarva, very windy. Long Island, everybody's going to be windy in the Northeast, folks. So scattered power outages is possible. It's a likely, especially these areas that get hit really hard with heavy wet snow. The winds aren't going to help at all. And we look at precipitation in general. Really in these areas right in here, pretty much all of this is going to be, and then it gets kind of weird over here depending on your elevation and stuff like that. But pretty much this entire area is just going to be flat out liquid. Okay. Some of these other areas mixes with a little bit of snow, but this is all just rain. Another 1 to 2 inches of rain in this entire circled area. So another washer moving in. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of the rain. They've had to cancel the last 2 soccer games. Started off very exciting. Won our first soccer game. Little girl scored 2 goals. And it just seems like we can't stop getting major rainstorms. And I don't know about y'all where you live, but it seems like when it rains, it has to rain 1 to 2 to 3 inches of rain. It can't just rain like a quarter inch, be done, dry up in an hour. It just, yeah. So anyways, just kind of rambling there. That's all I got, guys. Another reminder, I likely won't have a video tomorrow. I might. It depends. So don't hold me to that. But plenty of great sources out there for you folks to get weather from. But thank y'all for being loyal to me. For the people who are, it's much appreciated. Love you guys very much. But stay tuned for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a storm chasing day for me. I don't go live. Just don't have the setup for that yet. Maybe that's something I'll do in the future. As I think that's something that I would like to do. But just not the time right now to upgrade that kind of stuff. Got a lot more other important things going on besides that. So maybe that's a future thing. But I do periodic updates. Cannot talk. Let me get on off here and kind of give you guys a bird's eye of what's going on. God bless all y'all. Y'all stay safe tonight, and God bless. Talk to you soon.